Welcome back to Your Productivity Pulse with Michelle Oucharek-Deo. It is late in the afternoon while I'm recording this, and I couldn't help myself but grab a second cup of coffee because my Gold Star coffee that I drink, let me just see which one it is. It is the Hawaiian Kona Extra Fancy coffee that I drink from Gold Star, is really one of the best ever, and I just needed to have a little sip while I engage in this conversation with you today, and I just welcome you to grab something to drink or just enjoy yourself and relax, and let's get started. There are moments in life where something doesn't fully land the first time we hear it or we read it, and we have to review it just to make sure that we've understood what they're trying to say. I know that was me when I was growing up. Reading material either for studying or just for enjoyment was really difficult for me to take in sometimes and fully get all of the information. We hear the words, we understand the concept, but we don't truly absorb the lesson. And honestly, that's exactly what happened to me this week. Today's episode of Your Productivity Pulse was actually born out of a technical mistake that I made last week. After recording a wonderful interview with author and volunteer advocate Elizabeth Ducey, I realized during post-production that I had forgotten to turn on my good microphone. Oh, yes, I know, we've all been there before, right? Now, for someone who's highly skilled in audio editing, this might have been a relatively quick fix. But because I do my own post-production, that 1 hour of fixing things up actually took me about 15. Yes, I said 15 hours abouts. Now, at first glance, you might think, wow, Michelle really wasted a lot of time, and considering she's a productivity coach and talks about all things time saving and time well spent, you'd think, oh, that seems like a big waste of time, but it wasn't. The truth is, it wasn't a waste at all, because during those hours of the extra editing, adjusting audio, replaying sections, and listening over and over again, something unexpected happened. I started hearing the interview differently. And not just hearing it, really listening to it. And it made me think about something we rarely talk about when it comes to productivity. How many times do we actually need to hear something before it truly lands? Interestingly, research in cognitive psychology has shown for years that repetition plays a major role in how information moves from short-term awareness into long-term memory. That's not surprising for us. I want you to think about for a moment, my son used to watch the movie Cars over and over and over again. And at the time, I wondered how any child could possibly watch the same movie that many times. But children learn through repetition. The lessons sink in deeper every time. The themes become familiar, the emotions connect, and the understanding grows. And somewhere along the way, as adults, many of us stopped allowing ourselves that kind of learning, that kind of room to dedicate time to be able to let that information land. We skim it, we scroll, we half listen while multitasking. Then we wonder why ideas don't stick, why we don't remember certain things. Researchers from Stanford University and several other institutions have even explored how multitasking reduces comprehension and memory retention because our brains are constantly shifting attention instead of deeply processing information. I don't know about you, but I've always been told that if you can be a multitasker, that's amazing. And I guess in some circumstances it can be useful, but in this one, not so much. And I think many of us have experienced this without even realizing it. Have you ever driven home from work listening to a podcast, only to suddenly realize you have absolutely no memory of the last 10 minutes? The words were there, the sound was there. You remember it was Michelle talking, but your brain was somewhere else entirely. Maybe you were thinking about dinner, your child's soccer practice, an unfinished email, or that conversation you wish had gone differently earlier in the day. Then maybe a few days later, you get a chance to hear that exact same podcast episode again, while out for a walk maybe, or folding laundry, or sitting quietly with a cup of coffee. And then suddenly, one sentence lands differently. one idea sticks. One thought sparks something inside of you, not because the information changed, but because your attention changed. While prepping for this podcast, I came across the term spaced repetition and started diving deeper into the research behind how repeated exposure to information actually improves retention and learning. And honestly, the more I explored it, the more I realized we probably use pieces of this naturally already. Spaced repetition does not have to be complicated. It can be as simple as listening, pausing, reviewing the next day, coming back in a few days, and then asking yourself, how does this apply to my real life? That small rhythm can help you retain more, waste less time relearning, and make your learning far more effective over time. Interesting, hey? And maybe that's exactly what happened for me while editing Elizabeth's interview. The extra listening gave the ideas enough time and space to fully land. Maybe productivity isn't always about consuming more information. Maybe sometimes productivity is about slowing down enough to truly absorb the information we already have. Some people learn through reading, others through listening, others through discussion or movement or hands-on practice. But every single learning style requires one thing: time, intentional time. And maybe that's part of the bigger conversation we need to start having around productivity. Because if we never give ourselves enough space to revisit important ideas, how can we ever apply them deeply enough to create meaningful change? The extra listening time helped me think differently. It helped me slow down. It helped me realize that deep thought often requires repeated exposure. I'm going to say it again. It helped me realize that deep thought often requires repeated exposure. And maybe that's part of why the 42-minute hour, one of my time tools, works so well for some people. It intentionally creates focused space for one meaningful task instead of constantly bouncing between distractions. It allows you to not multitask in a traditional way, but choose two tasks that you want to get done in an hour. 42 minutes on a primary task and 18 minutes on a secondary one. Research continues to show that focused attention is one of the key ingredients in both learning and productivity. So maybe today's question is this: what in your life deserves a second listen, a second read, a second reflection? Because intentional learning may actually be one of the most overlooked productivity tools we have. Thanks for stepping into this small little conversation today. And remember, intentionality plus accountability creates the kind of productivity that allows us not just to do more, but to understand more deeply. Now go out there, be productive, and have some fun. Thank you for listening to this episode of Your Productivity Pulse. You're not alone in this. We're all learning how to navigate our time in a way that actually supports our lives. If you want a simple place to start, grab the free Time Disruptor checklist in the show notes and join the community. Let's start noticing what's getting in the way so we can begin to make the shift. Remember, intention plus accountability equals productivity. Until next time, keep listening to your pulse.